Today is January 22nd, and today I watched Silent Hill. And the reason I'm recording this like some kind of detective like Dale Cooper over here is because I just had so much to say. Like after the movie, I was instantly just waiting to go home and record my thoughts, and that's what I'm here for. I didn't like it, first of all, but not to say that you won't like it, you know, but if you're here for a faithful story or you're here for the characters, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much. It's not very faithful at all. But if you're here for, like, you don't care as much, a loose little story based on Silent Hill, you might like it. I heard some people have, like, enjoyed it. Like, it's like a decent movie. Do you remember the scene from the trailers coming out of James spitting up water? People were relating it to the water ending. You know, pretty significant part of the story. All that deep, important stuff, this is not that. Well, I think it does, you know, try to be deeper, but nothing like the game. Okay, so this is when James is kind of over Maria. He's like walking away from her, not talking to her, not really acknowledging her, just seems really like fed up and determined to find Mary, and Maria's just urging him to like stay with Maria, like stay with me, you know, like let's escape together. James realizes that like this isn't Mary, like this is Maria, so he says, "You're not real." And what happens is he closes his eyes, I kid you not, and covers his ears, and he's just like screaming like, "You're not real." He doesn't say you're not real, but he's just screaming. And then Mary dies. That's how Mary dies in this game, or this movie. So basically Pyramid Head just manifests behind like Maria in thin air, and then he stabs her through the chest, picks her up with his sword, and she dies. As she's dying, the camera zooms in on Pyramid Head's face through a crack, and it shows James's face inside Pyramid Head. We never see Pyramid Head again. Like, that's where that ends. Like, and this is still a good amount in the movie left. Pyramid Head like has less than 2 minutes of screen time. It's crazy, and the way that they handle this is just it's crazy. Like, so James just controls Pyramid Head, I guess, and then suddenly he just wakes up coughing up the water in a puddle, kind of brings himself up, and that's where that scene comes from, which is there's just so much to talk about there alone, but there's just so much more I have to get to. Like I said, this movie's kind of crazy. But yeah, the way that Pyramid Head just doesn't even really show up much. He isn't even like a main part of the movie, as nothing like in the game. The way they promote this movie to have Pyramid Head on the poster, and like there's just so much promotional material with him. It's just sad to see him butchered yet again in another adaptation of the story. Immediately starts with the knife, which, if you know, you know. Before I go into the rest of the story, I want to talk about my theater experience. I went to the local AMC by my house, and about like 4 hours before, I checked online to see the seats, and it wasn't really full, pretty empty on the most part. Not dead, but empty. So I felt pretty confident just going to the theater, buying my ticket in the ticket stand or whatever. And I bought my ticket like 15 minutes after the showing time, so I made it just in time for the final trailer and like the ads for the theater I'm in. The movie starts, right? And you know, I watched the movie, all that, and I'm gonna say maybe 30 minutes into the movie or something like that, 2 people next to me just get up and leave, and then the guy next, like sitting to the left of me, is like snoring. Like, he falls asleep at least 3 times throughout the movie. Eventually, then when the credits roll, I can hear people complaining like this was terrible. I even heard someone pretty close to me saying like they couldn't look at the screen, they had to look away a few times because it was so hard to watch, which I didn't get that bad, but I can understand. And then like some people did like it though. I heard some people say it was pretty okay, or like they enjoyed it, but for the most part it was pretty overwhelmingly negative. And I have to agree with the person next to me 2 seats down, who said that the best part of the movie was the end credits, because that's when they finally play the theme of Laura, which goes crazy. It was really nice hearing the OST. The same guy, Akira, does the same like OST for the movie, but it isn't as, I don't know, I have to rewatch it, but it didn't feel as iconic. Alright, let's go to the movie itself. So the movie starts with James driving a 2010 Ford Mustang. The movie takes place a little later than in the games. We see this opening scene of him driving with this dark shades on, just speeding down the highway, having fun, wearing the leather jacket like he's Dean Winchester or something. And he wears that leather jacket, and that fit the entire movie, by the way. But anyways, the plot starts with him skirting down this like highway, and then he like crashes into these luggages on the kind of near the road. He parks his car and like helps this girl get her luggages together as the bus comes, but the bus misses them, and we find out that he hit Mary's luggages, and this is how they meet and they get together. And I was so glad when she said her name was Mary, because I was like, if this is the James we get, like, oh, it would have been awful. But it like cuts to James, depressed, normal James that we know, in a bar getting super drunk. Eventually gets kicked out, starts fighting with the bodyguards, and then they throw him to this trash. And then he picks up the phone to the therapist that's been calling him throughout this whole like fighting bar scene. She ends up being a pretty significant character. I'll get more to that later. He just has a very messed up life, and then we end up cutting to his apartment where he sees Mary's letter, and that's when we start the Silent Hill 2 intro cutscene, and then the plot goes forward. And at this point, like, it's nothing special, but I've enjoyed it, you know, like it adds a little extra context to the story, you know, follows the games like pretty loosely, a little fast, but I mean, it's a movie, what do you expect? I was like fine with it, you know, and it was like good, you know, it was like what I was expecting for the Silent Hill movie, until eventually we get to the first main point that kind of stood out to me. Not a huge deal, but something that made me like, and ended up being a bigger deal than I realized later. So we go to the first monster encounter with James, which is the straitjacket or the laying figure. So James is walking up to this little area under some kind of bridge or underpass or something, and he sees this lying figure on the ground making some weird noises, and he like slowly approaches as the static from the radio is going off on this like some kind of barrel on the side, and he's just like saying like, hey, what's going on? Like, he notices the town's abandoned, like it's covered in like this dust that's explained from some fire or something, and like just the town's like weird, and there's like some biological hazards on some signs that we saw earlier. So he's like trying to figure out what's going on, and he tries to like wake this guy or something. So he like turns around, looks around. It's very tense. It does a good job building up tension here. And then we get jump scared with Homeless Man, which kind of comes out of nowhere. He ends up being this guy explaining like, oh, the people are like sick, everyone's gone. He's like, wait, but you're okay. He ends up pointing James in the right direction anyways. And then a few moments later, we hear the homeless man screaming, and then James looks back, and that's when we see the real encounter with the straitjacket / lying figure. And we see James running back, and the homeless man's like flesh is melting, and we see that creature like a little bit in the distance, and then James like throws this like pipe at it, the monster, and it kind of just goes crazy. Like, he throws this insane accuracy, and it like kind of spins and stuff like straight to the lying figure. I'm gonna call it lying figure. He starts like fighting it, but then it like scurries off away, like kind of frantically like scurrying under this car into this hole, and then disappears. And James is like kind of looking like, what the heck is going on? And we saw this actually in some of the early photos. And then, spoiler alert, by the way, James never goes in any holes. And this is when we get introduced to the other side of Silent Hill. Like, the sirens go off as this like announcer, or not announcer, but it's like guy on the radio warning like everyone like, evacuate Silent Hill and stuff. The siren goes off, and then the world like turns orange, and the sky turns like dark and stuff. And that's when we get introduced to the big threat, which is these bugs that are crawling out of the like little cages. I don't know, the little things on the floor. And at first it's like a little, but then we see like a little like swarm of them, but then it just keeps on coming. And then we just see like this giant flood, and I mean actually like a flood of the bugs. The creepers is what they're called in the games. And they're just like swarming this like giant wave towards James. And we see it like actually attacking the laying figures, like it's like actually defeating them because there's just so many. And then James ends up taking refuge in the apartments as the bugs crash up against the door, like in its big wave all scurrying around. And that's how we get to the apartments, and James goes on his, you know, journey there, making his way to the static immediately, the static TV. I noticed that in this movie, the swarm and like group of enemies happens twice. So this happens one more time with the nurses, bobbing head nurses in the hospital. They kind of like show up suddenly in this group, attack, and then James moves on to the next location. While I'm here, the bestiary or monsters that show up in this movie are the lying figures, the bobblehead nurses, the creepers, pyramid head, abstract daddy, the final boss, monster Mary. Moths also play a pretty big role in this movie. We see them appear a lot when Mary's mentioned, or like around Mary's things. They never attack, but they're pretty important. They also have the mannequin spider from Silent Hill Revelations show up as some kind of like mini boss that goes after James. He ends up taking refuge in this closet, and then Pyramid Head kills this spider mannequin, I think is what it's called. He doesn't play with it, and then he goes to James in the closet, and he just opens the door, and then James just like freaks out, and that's where that ends. And then we see Pyramid Head also freaks out with James as the sirens go off. All right, now let's go to a crazy moment, a very big difference in the story. So the cult is here, the Order, you know, the cult from Silent Hill, shows up in this movie again. I guess Christoph Gans just really loves the cult stuff from the games, and it plays a very significant role to the story. It's a divide in the relationship between James and Mary, makes them like fight, like, because it's like the reason he's kind of disconnected from Mary. It's also the reason she's sick, terminally ill, and gets bedridden. In the games, she's just, you know, normally sick, whatever. It's not very, it's like more grounded, but in here, it's because her father was actually the leader of the cult. I believe it's like Jacob or whatever. Mary's father is the founder of the Order, and the Order kind of tries to raises her. And the reason she's sick is because her father and then leaders of the Order would feed her, or not feed her, like give her this like liquid drug thing. So the ritual would go like this. She would drink this liquid, and then she'd just collapse, like really unable to move, and like blood would start coming everywhere, like it would just kind of just appear on her body, like it's coming out like a sponge being like squeezed or something, but her body's like not, you know, moved around. It's just coming out, just flowing from her body. So all this blood's coming out, and then she gets body surfed up by the cult, and they start like licking like the blood off of her, like frantically, like going crazy. And it's explained that she's done this ever since she was like a little girl, which is insane. And yeah, that's why she's sick and dying and dies eventually. This is kind of brought into the apartments with when James like freaks out at the static. Later on, it's explained it's because he saw the tapes from these rituals through the static or something, and that's why he like freaked out when he saw it. All right, now I'm gonna get to basically the ending. This is like the bombshell for me that kind of just breaks the entire story. Like when I tell you I was shocked. Okay, so picture this. We get to the balcony and see Mary's corpse in the bed, surrounded by this fire as the building burns. And then we get a flashback to Mary's death. We see the inside of a nice white but cozy room with a nice view, a nice sunshine of light coming in with the breeze. And James is sitting by the window looking outside, and then looks to Mary as she starts getting uncomfortable, bleeding a little bit. He quickly rushes over to take care of her, gets a warm towel, and starts like wiping her face. And he's like very much there for her. In the movie, it's very implied that he's just always there by her side, you know, taking very good care of her in sickness. But the depression comes from this. So Mary says that she wants to die because as long as she's alive, her father is inside her, and she begs for James to kill her and cries. He doesn't want to kill her, but she's begging for it because as long as her father is inside her, then, you know, it's just the cult is there or something. I don't know if she's gonna like give birth to a god or something, but she just needs to die because her father's blood is in her or something like that. James ends up giving in to this pain that she's in and decides to get the towel that he used to wipe her face to snuff her life as she chokes her out quietly and pretty calmly as she dies, which is so crazy from the games. Like James is painted as this good guy, like definitely compared to the games, a good guy. Like there's not that moral like ambiguity. Like James isn't this bad person who's like grieving over this thing that he's done, but he's blocked out. That like he's genuinely like not that bad, especially compared to the games. Like they painted him in such a brighter light, which just takes up so much away from the story and these characters and these events and Pyramid Head. And like Pyramid Head is reduced to what I don't even know, James's actions. Like it's crazy because he's just James's little pet basically. Like he doesn't blame the situation on like Mary or anything. Like what's the point of Maria? Like there's just so much. Okay, let's move on to Laura, which is a pretty big deal because she's never explained to be a patient in the hospital or connected to Mary at all ever, except for one thing. In the very beginning, Laura says that she got her doll from Mary, and that's all we get. And then Laura eventually is like, later on in the story, like during her final meeting, is like, you like blaming James, like you left her. Also, like she's not even like this annoying little girl, this little brat that gets in the way, very playful, but like hinting with this like meanness towards James. She's just reduced to this cliche creepy little girl with a doll. Like that's all she is in this movie, which by the way, the doll eventually turns into this CGI baby, which has so much more implications for the story, and she ends up being this like deformed thing. Like as he's trying to leave Mary, like Mary's encounter and all that, she like attacks James, is all deformed, and like the dog gets crazy and stuff, and then he like runs away, and that's where her character arc ends, I guess. And I forgot to mention, Mary's it's not a boss fight between Mary and James. Like, the ending is like kind of like Mary just like talking to James, and then she just dies. There's no like fight or anything. She just kind of aura farms her a little bit, and then that's what we get. All right, now I'm gonna explain Angela because she's also pretty significant. So she's introduced pretty straightforward in the cemetery. You know, this is the part where the movie's still like loosely following the games but going along pretty well. However, when we get to her second encounter in the mirror, you know, with the knife, it's much more aggressive and energetic. There's no atmosphere in the tone. There's no music in the background. She just has the knife like shoved, jamming it in the wooden planks or whatever, and then she's like very loud to James, very like aggressive. And there's no uncanny or like obviously, but there's no like emotion in it. It's all just over the top, like, what are you doing here? Like, get away from me. And then she's like, oh no. And then she does her thing where she goes into the corner and is like, no one's ever gonna touch me again. And then James leaves. The whole time she's like that. Like, in the games, it kind of builds up to that a little bit, but she's just straight up like that, which takes away a lot from that scene. And it also has like one of the best OSTs in the game, which is not present at all, with no ambient background noise at all. It's just butchered, I guess. Like, I don't know. That kind of was just like, I was like, ooh, if only that music was there. And I don't know. And her third and final encounter is, so James goes to this room and finds Angela on this bed sitting down, and then she pulls up her clothes to reveal these hands grabbing her thighs, and they would like drag her down into the bed, into this hole. Okay, this is the only hole in the movie that James jumps into. So James chases after her, trying to like pull her free, and then falls in, and then we go into this like little fleshy room with like iron bars going in the walls, where the, you know, abstract daddy fight would happen. After that's over, he peers back in the room, the abstract daddy melts and dies, and that's all we get. Those are the only 3 encounters we get with Angela, and no fire scene. What happens next is he notices the fire coming from this other side of the door. He opens the door, he finds Mary in the fiery hallway after running for a little bit, and then she like turns the corner and just disappears, and that's it. He goes through the fire, sees Mary again on the bed, whole thing, which was definitely a quickly put together scene. I don't know if it was like a time thing or what, but like they just had it there to just, oh, we have the fire, to explain the fire or something. Also, like, everyone experiences Silent Hill the same. Like, whenever he runs into someone, they all like make references to things that he's seeing. Like, it's very clearly everyone experiences the same Silent Hill. Like, Silent Hill in this movie doesn't adapt to the person. It's just literally Silent Hill just got attacked by this cult. It feels very like culty apocalyptic city thing. It isn't like the town's molding to James. It's just that's the town. And this is mentioned with Eddie, which we get introduced to pretty early on in the apartments. He's throwing up, and then James like talks to him, and he just explains people in the town have been really sick, the hospital's flooded, and that's why there's like these beds and there's like the streets and the sidewalks, because I'm assuming it's the cult. He like explains what's going on, like, oh, there was a fire and a flood. After some expedition dumping, he goes with James to the Pyramid Head scene where they meet Laura, who's hiding in this corner, and they try to get her to come out. She just hides the whole time until Pyramid Head comes. Eddie just beats James up and then leaves, and then Eddie's gone. We never see Eddie again. Like, that Eddie is just an expedition dump, and that's it. He's reduced to nothing but that, which is crazy. I'm so sorry if you're a fan of his. And it's kind of like, what's the point of these characters showing up? Fan service? Keeping it similar to the games? No. It's actually all explained by Laura at the end when she's kind of like fighting with James. So when turning on James, she says, remember it, James. What's her full name, in reference to Mary? And then we then get a flashback to a grave in this like brightly like sunny grave on this hill or something, like in this grassy area, and we see Mary's name on the grave. Her full name, Mary Angela Laura Crane. What? So that's it, huh? So these characters are different personas of Mary, different times in her life, like Mary Laura, Mary Angela Laura Crane. That's crazy. And then I guess just screw Eddie. Like, Eddie's literally nothing, represents nothing. If you go into this without knowing the games, you'll just think he's a side character, like the homeless guy. Like, what? I don't even think his name gets brought up. Like, I just don't know what to say. I was just so shocked when I saw this. All right, and then before I mention the final things, which are pretty huge, I just want to say that James is described as his profession is a painter in this movie, and that's why these paintings follow him throughout the story. Also, when Maria's like hurt on the bed, she's like kisses James, and James kisses her back for like a good 2-3 seconds. All right, So this is the final scene before the credits roll, and you're not gonna believe. Okay, like just try it. You'll never guess it. Just try to guess. Like, how does this end? Like, which ending is it? You know, like, is it a different ending? Like, how do they resolve this story? The movie ends with James going back in time to his Ferrari on the highway, speeding through the highway, hitting Mary's luggage, and then parking. He then goes out, does the same thing. He interrupts her before she says anything. He's like, "Oh, Mary, isn't it?" Or like, "Oh, it's Mary, right?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, how do you know?" He's like, "Oh, I just read your name on the luggage." And then they just have like a slightly different conversation, implying that they're gonna be different this time and relive their life. But like, James is gonna fix the mistakes he was gonna make. The ending is like, Mary's like, "Oh wow, you're such a gentleman," and then word for word, James is like, "I'm James the gentleman," and then she laughs, responds, and credits roll. James gets a second chance. Or does he? So, like I said, the therapist was really important because I left out a very important part of the movie. A little more than halfway through, there was still roughly an hour left of the movie. James gets attacked by a monster, goes unconscious, and wakes up in a hospital. This Silent Hill hospital with other people around and a bright sunny day, like there's nothing going on. The therapist is talking to the doctor outside the room. The therapist explains to the doctor that he hallucinates a lot and he thinks that his wife is still alive. He's living these delusions in this false reality that she doesn't think he even wants to wake up from. And then she also explains like, oh yeah, he's also like a vet, so he has like more things to deal with. And that's it. That's the only thing we ever hear of James being a vet. It never gets brought up again. It doesn't even make sense with the theming. She goes back in like, James, like, this isn't real, your wife's dead. And then James looks out the window and we cut back to Silent Hill for the rest of the movie. We never go back. It's never mentioned again, which implies a theory that I've heard, and it's a pretty good theory, about James is reliving these events of Silent Hill 2 over and over again, like doomed in this cycle. But in the movie, when James relives these memories, he retains the memories that he had from this terrific experience. And it very much implies that he changes the outcome, has different dialogue with Mary. He's gonna live a happier life with her and isn't going to experience these events, which defeats the entire purpose of the living it again. That just takes away from the theory, takes away from the theming of the story. There's just so much in the story that's just taken away. James he's too good of a character. A lot of these characters don't even make sense. Like, what is the point of Maria, Eddie, Laura? Like, what are the point of these characters? Like, there's just so much holes in this movie. I just had to get this off my chest. If you're still watching and you're thinking about watching the movie, don't go for the story. If you don't care that much about the story, you'll probably be fine.